focus. Where are you?
I'm trapped in my past.
Come now, Alice. It's only a dream.
It's not a dream, it's a memory.
All right. Welcome to an evening with the Loading Bar. This is Professor Jeff. I'm joined by the sensual...
Hang on, let me put the Kenny G on.
No, Jason Murphy is joining me here, so we figured we'd just lay down some smooth tracks here on the Loading Bar.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I'm going to put my sting in you, woman. Down low.
So, Alice Madness Returns. It's the latest, the sequel to American McGee's Alice.
Which was on the PC back in 99, 2000, something like that?
Yeah, it was somewhere around there. It was kind of when like third-person 3D games, I mean, when you were starting to see there was games like that and, Heavy Metal Fact 2, you were seeing a lot of this kind of third-person games. And they were still kind of in their infancy, so if you go back, you can actually download the original Alice and play it, and I didn't because about 2 years ago I decided to download Alice I put in my old copy and installed it, and that game doesn't hold up super great.
Really? It's funny because it's still got a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. I'll have people saying, "Oh, I picked up a copy of Alice. I never got to play that." Like at Half Price Books or something, they'll find an old copy of it, and but then for some reason they never end up playing it. But it's got a pretty broad appeal. The thing that was most noticeable about it at the time was that nobody was doing the kind of surreal environments that you saw in there, right?
And the fact that the engine was able to handle like rounded corners, and the environments weren't just very blocky and square like you saw in a lot of games. There was a lot of great art style and art direction to them. So
yeah, the design work was really cool and novel. And I actually, before the game came out, I actually had a chance to read the design document, the Bible, as it were. And it's a hell of a lot better than the final game. They had to cut a lot of corners, to meet release dates and stuff like that. But yeah, that was something that was kind of groundbreaking at its time, and taking a children's tale and just perverting it. Now it's, everywhere you turn, you see that, whether it's, Todd McFarlane's Wizard of Oz, or something like that. Then it was cool and creepy. And basically it was, Alice is crazy, and Wonderland exists only in her mind. And you had to fight your way through your own psychoses to defeat the Red Queen.
Okay, now if you could, for our listeners, summarize this new Alice game.
Alice is crazy, and Wonderland exists only in her own mind, and you have to fight your way through her psychoses to defeat something else.
Relax.
I'm in hell.
Forget it. Abandon that memory. It's unproductive. Go to Wonderland.
I can't. I'm trapped in my past.
Actually, I think the most horrifying part of this new Alice game is not so much Wonderland as it is the real world.
Oh, yeah, because you fade in and out of this weird stylized Victorian England, which kind of has this Tim Burton-esque flair to it, only not cloying and dumb anymore.
Yeah, people have their heads are way too big, and their facial features are all screwed on the wrong direction on top of their head and shit. It's
it's
disconcerting.
Very stylized and spooky. And those parts aren't really game. Those are just interstitial things between the Wonderland game segments. When the parts when you're in Victorian London, it's all dirty and grimy. There's really not a lot of gameplay to it. You're just kind of walking until you get to the next cutscene, which, the art direction in this new sequel is top notch. I thought it was just beautiful. It's really dark, surreal, very inventive, and some of the cutscenes go into these animated 2D sequences.
Yeah, like cut out, like almost like a shadow puppet, like a paper puppet kind of look to them. Like they have no dimension, but they're very, very. They work extremely well for what they do.
It's. The art in this it's really some of the most beautiful design work I've seen in a game.
I was kind of disappointed when I first started out, because that first level where you're in the Mad Hatter's domain, where it's the real industrial, like all the gears and stuff, and I was kind of like, I've kind of had enough with dirty industrial. But then as soon as you get out of there, everything else, there's a cards level and the underwater level and the Oriental level, and it's all just like every level has so oozing with like style and class that just makes
a
it really
lot
good.
of variety. I mean, it's just gorgeous and very different and trippy and unsettling, and the music and sound design goes hand in hand with it. It works with it just perfectly.
Yeah.
But whoever was the driving force behind this game, I don't know if it was some unknown designer at Spicy Horse or if it was actually American McGee, but they need to be locked up. Because there was some stuff in this game where I was just like, okay, that's fucked up. And not the kind of junior high kid who saw the Saw movies, all the Saw movies in the theater, but some weird, surreal stuff that this movie is basically, or this game is basically like somebody ground up Sigmund Freud's ashes and snorted them. Because there's so much psychosexual imagery and just all of these, double meanings, and you're going and picking up bits of your memory and you're starting to put it together, what happened to you and what was going on, and you're like, that's nasty. Yeah. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it gets dark.
It's definitely not rated E for everyone.
No.
It looks like it looks like Spicy Horse is American McGee's company, and I'd be willing to bet that
he did very little.
No, I'd be willing to bet that he did quite a bit, but that because of games like Bad Day LA and the Twisted Fairy Tales and stuff, that the American McGee name has lost enough goodwill amongst video game players that they would probably actually have sold less if it had been American McGee's Alice 2. They'd be like, man, did you play Bad Day LA?
Right.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And I don't care. I mean, whose name is on the game? That's not going to sell it for me. It's not like a director. Well, I guess, I don't know. Sometimes, if you got Miyamoto or somebody like that tied to the game, then yeah, that'll get my attention. But American McGee's, some gothy kid with eyeliner, takes a nursery rhyme and puts fishnet hose on it and a meat cleaver, whatever. But still, this was good, and I don't know how much he had to do with it. Like I was saying, maybe he did have a lot to do with it, but this. He probably wishes it did have his name on it because it's actually a solid game.
Yeah. I was really surprised when I got it. I thought it was going to be kind of tepid, and I'll be honest. I mean, there were parts of the game that didn't work as well as they could have. I mean, I tell you, the one that really pissed me off. Alice has this, characters in video games. It's long established. Can sometimes double jump. You jump, and while you're jumping, you jump again. For Alice, that shit just wasn't enough. Alice has a quadruple jump. She can jump 4 times in the air, except that every consecutive jump does less and less. And so it becomes this thing where you're jumping towards a platform and you're just frantically trying to get like the 1 inch that you need to put your foot on the side of that platform, but oh no, now you're dead.
Yeah. Now you explode into butterflies.
Yeah. But what I will say is that on top of that, I mean, the game is very platform heavy. It does have a lot of jumping puzzles, and I know that turns a lot of people off. But I spent a lot of time...
Not just jumping puzzles, sorry to interrupt, but timed jumping puzzles.
Oh, yeah. It's been a little while. It's been a little while since I played it. I forgot. Not just timed jumping puzzles, but invisible timed jumping puzzles.
Yeah. And they actually send someone to your house to throw things at you while you're trying to play it.
They say, is this bothering you? I'm not touching you. But what I will say is I spent a lot of time complaining about games that are poorly checkpointed. Alice was perfectly checkpointed. Like, they never made you go back and do, like, even the last 5 minutes of gameplay that you just did. It was just like, you fall and then boop, you're right back up there.
Yeah.
Not a big
Yeah,
deal.
I was really afraid that it was going to be incredibly frustrating some of the times when you died. Actually, that is one of my complaints, because at some points, you would, like when you're going down those slides, there are slides that reminded me of like Rainbow Bridge in Super Mario Kart, because it's these slides where you're sliding down them trying to dodge stuff, and they're curving around, but there are no side rails, so you can just fall off into oblivion. With some of those, it's like if you died enough times trying that, it would start you over, like not even at the beginning of the slide, but like a little ways before you even get to the slide. But it seemed very arbitrary about when it did that.
Really? I didn't
Yeah,
think I even
and
noticed
it only
that.
happened a couple of times, so it was really strange.
Outside of that, I would also say that the combat wasn't exactly the most well put together action game I've ever played.
No.
Like, I mean, it kind of suffered from that, third person Z targeting where you're locked onto this one enemy and then suddenly 6 guys jump you from behind and you're just so, especially with the fact that most of the enemies in the game require like a specific type of attack to bring their guard down, or you want to use one type of weapon on them that doesn't work on this other asshole.
Yeah, you definitely have to have some strategy, because some of the weapons, which are bizarre, are more effective against some of the other enemies, which are also bizarre. So, I mean, you've got these creepy doll heads that are floating around in some sludge and spitting stuff at you, and all of it ties into the horrible, dark things that happened in our past.
Yeah.
So
I think my favorite had to be the Kung Fu Wasps. Was that what they were?
yeah, the paper wasps.
Yeah, later on.
Yeah, these samurai wasps. Those were, just creepy. If you don't like wasps, which I don't, yeah, that part will really get under your skin, because they're coming at you with swords. But yeah, some of the levels were all great. The monsters were just, some of them were spooky as hell, and if you find enough memories to reassemble what happened, like I was saying, it ties back into what happened to her.
Yeah.
And all of these creatures and all of the effects that you see and stuff like that. It's like, oh, this ink is everywhere because your father was really into like map making or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but
yeah. No,
it's really good about tying that all together.
It definitely was very emergent, and it gave you a lot of incentive to go find those memories, because since the story, they kind of set up very early on just the general circumstance of Alice and why she is where she is and why she is who she is, and then as you play the game and you collect these memories, you start to fill in little bits of the story, kind of like Prototype, but with less throwing tanks at guys,
Right.
and more stabbing paper wasps.
Yeah. My big regret, not so much with the game, but with this review, is that Corey's not here to talk about how much he wants to have sex with Alice. And how much he wanted, when she was doing her quadruple jump, he wanted her dress to fly up so he could see if she was wearing underwear.
Do you think that's really where he would go? Crazy ass white girl who carries
absolutely.
around a giant knife all the time?
Oh, please. I'm surprised they didn't call Corey for references. Wait, full price for me on Alice.
I think I could go with a full price on that as well.
I would.
There's enough there. I don't really know if I would ever. I mean, I guess it's the sort of thing where it's a full price playthrough. I don't know if I would ever pick it up again now that I'm done. And there isn't multiplayer or anything.
Yeah. Well, I rarely do that anyway. And I can't really see much reason to do it here, because really by the end of the game, you've unlocked everything. Unless you want to go back and grab the other memories and stuff like that. But
It's I guess it's kind of just a sort of thing where if you are the sort of person who will play through a single player game, get to the end, and then play it back through because it was so great, I could see how it would be worth full price.
yeah. See, I definitely dug it, and I think it's it's a shame that a lot of people aren't going to check this one out, because it really just kind of came and went and just disappeared.
Now it's time to put your blade to work.